Hi, this is Bob Scully, and welcome to another edition of The World Show, Entrepreneurs, the Dobson Series. Here's a movie we've all seen before. There's a small town somewhere in North America, and tragedy befalls the town. There's a flood, or a hurricane, or a fire, or simply the largest factory in town leaves, nobody has any more work, and all of a sudden, a citizen appears who's a natural hero and who says, I will save this place. I will give people back their homes, or their jobs, or their dignity. And it works. We see that on screen a lot, but not so often in real life. But this week you're going to meet a true serial entrepreneur who took his entrepreneurial talent and placed it in the service of his community, and it did work. His name is Carvalho, a Portuguese immigrant. Initially he came here almost as part of a love story, and he came to a small town called North Bay, which is aptly named. It's on a bay on Lake Nipissing, lovely old historic town, but it's pretty far north. And he came there, and slowly he built, after studying in Boston, he built a computer services company that also trained young computer technicians. So it was doing very well. And then one day, some business colleges in his town and others surrounding it suddenly goes bust in the middle of the school year. And these are kids with not much money, and they need those diplomas to get a trade as paralegals or paramedics or something similar. And all of a sudden, their future is gone and their money's gone. The professors, same thing. There's nobody left to pay them. The government doesn't care. It's not a public institution. And he decides that he will take time out from his computer company and save those schools. And he fights with the government, the regulators, and everybody, and the bankers, and he makes it happen. It's a success. But he's not done yet. He has a third career waiting. He's from Portugal, so he loves soccer. He decides to dabble in the agency business, and he starts to put together clubs and players. And he's in Paraguay, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, Central Europe, all over the place. And that too has worked. He has the Midas touch. Here's Carvalho. Carlos Carvalho, you've had quite the entrepreneurial career. You're still a young man, but you've been through a lot. And I want to go back and start with how you met your wife, because it's almost like a fairy tale. Let's talk about
that. She is Canadian, but of Portuguese descent. She, that summer, went with one of her sisters. There are 4 sisters. Her and Lucy went to Portugal to visit their grandmother. And in Portugal, each little town has a little fiesta, like the Saint Jean Baptiste. And so I went to her town for the fiesta, and we met up. Then I stopped to say hi to her. The policeman was on my case. Get the car out of here, we got people to... So anyway, so I said, stay right there, I'll be right back. So I went and parked the car and went back. We stayed together that afternoon. Luckily, the grandmother liked me, because they're very tough in there.
Yeah.
And we stayed together. Usually those fiestas last for 3 or 4 days. I don't know if I went back the next day, but all I know is that I was there almost every day that I could. And it was funny because 6 months later, we got married.
And you were already in Canada? I mean, it's kind of funny. Both of you were in Canada, but you met in Portugal?
No, I was there.
Okay.
I'm the only one outside
of
of Portugal of my family.
Okay.
So she was there. At the end of 2 months, she was supposed to come back. Lucy came back alone. She stayed. I used to travel because I was already a salesperson or a manufacturer's rep. I had this big Peugeot, and I invited her to go on trips with me, and she came along. We visit our clients. She was, pretty nice and quiet. She put up with those long waits. And I think it was November, 5 months after, we decided, what the heck are we doing? Might as well get married and start.
Bingo.
And bingo, absolutely.
And then, so she's the one who brought you to Canada?
She did.
Oh, I see.
I ended up in Montreal.
Okay.
In February. Cold as heck. Yeah. And then they transported us from I think it was Carvalho, to Pierre Elliott Trudeau, one of the 2 airports, so that I could fly to North Bay.
Well, that's
not exactly
warm. I was going to say, yeah.
And then flew to an even colder place.
Holy cow.
It's unbelievable.
But you didn't turn back?
No, fortunately, I think we were too preoccupied. Of course, didn't speak English, didn't speak French. So what do? I think I waited about 4 or 5 months for papers to be able to work. Then I did a little bit of construction. I was not a guy for construction. My father-in-law was a very good Finnish carpentry, but that was not for me. Yeah. So I then went to work at Legion's Do you remember
Yeah,
jeans when they were in Canada?
Yeah, I do.
My wife was like a star in there. She was in the jacket line, her and I think all her sisters. They were quite the operators. I went
This
to
is
work
in North Bay.
In North Bay, I went to work in the warehouse for about 6 months, just long enough so that I could enroll in Canador. Because now, you know, you've got that exam of admissions, the entrance exam, and you got to speak at least. I think I had to reach TOEFL 530 or something in order to enroll. So I enrolled, took as many courses as quickly as possible. I'm sure, a pain in the rear end to those professors up there.
Because you couldn't speak English.
Not only that, but I don't know why I was in a hurry. I was in a hurry to do something, you know, and the computers was the in thing in the 80s. This was 1980. Then, of course, we found ourselves, my wife was pregnant. 1981, my son was born. So you don't really have a lot of time to think about, you know, what do I do? You got to do it.
And you went to Boston?
Then that was in 80, later, after I finished Canador, or at least I had enough to go to Boston to take the Novell Certified Network Engineering course. And that was not available in Canada. I wanted to take it in Canada, Boston, and California, and two other places. Novell was big in the network industry. About 80% of the networks was controlled by Novell. So I chose Novell as opposed to Microsoft. Either I could have gone to Boston or Utah. I chose Boston and took the course, finished, wrote the exams, came back and started the company. I think the company had already started.
A computer service company,
yeah.
A systems integrator, and so on. But here I'm going to skip a chapter. That's interesting in itself because you made a big success of it. But what's interesting to me entrepreneurially is then you bet that ranch on the closure of a college. It took a lot of vision to do that. One day, Ontario Business Colleges, which I think had 12 campuses, folds.
That's correct.
Including the one in North Bay. And what did you do?
Well, you see, part of us, I don't know, we're kind of crazy guys, you know, the entrepreneurs. So you always want to fulfill a need, you know, because you fulfill a need for your clients. That's how you know, and then you've got the gall to make the recommendation and ask for the order. So they were, I think it was about May 1999, 64 people were out on the street. It was all over the news. Students. So I started thinking, by 10 o'clock, I got to make the call to the ministry. I didn't know who I was calling or what I could do for them, but I just offered.
So these were students who could no longer finish their studies.
That's correct.
Because the school went broke.
Absolutely. So they were out on the street, and they were sensationalizing that. And I'll tell you a little bit of why I also made the call. This was the Premier's writing. Mike Harris was the Premier.
Mike Harris was
well, we got to do
Ontario.
something. I phoned the Nugget, and the Nugget wouldn't take my call to say, why are you guys doing this? Always going on the negative and all of that stuff. The opposition are going to just eat this for breakfast. So I made the call to the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities. This gentleman, Dr. Miyoshi, answered. And I said, he said, how can I help you? And I said, look, I don't know if you can help me, but I'm trying to see if I can help you. You know, I introduced myself, who I am, and all that stuff. I bet you we were talking for about 40, 45 minutes. At the end, he says, Carlos, I'm coming up to North Bay tomorrow. So he rented a van, and he came up, and he met me.
That's like a 4-hour drive.
Oh, he left at 6 o'clock in the morning, because at 9:30, 10 o'clock, he was there. We started talking. I was very honest with him. This is what I do. I already had the...
computer company was going very well.
That's right. And I had the training academy. I was training people to do what I did because I saw an opportunity. Well, if anybody that wants to be an engineer has to go to the United States, why don't I bring it here? So I was able to convince Novell, and I was able to convince Microsoft to give me the license to teach their curriculum. So it was already going well, but we had only 3, 4, I think 4 classrooms. Certainly not enough to
absorb 64 students.
Exactly. So we had to think about how we were going to do it. And then, of course, the ministry was not going to pay me because they only fund public institutions. It's wrong to pay a private, you know, in their eyes. So we designed the way of accommodating the students. Within 2 weeks, I think 11 days, they were all everyone was back on their in their classrooms.
And were they paying you any tuition, or
No, because they already had paid it to the other one.
Yeah, you were doing it on spec.
Exactly. So I made a deal with them that, okay, I'll take on the expense. I'll hire all the staff because it's an easy transition, but you got to convince the minister to give me the charter.
Ah.
The charter which gives me the ability to offer diplomas on behalf of the minister.
Of course. Yeah.
So he says, I can't do that. Well, you go back. Here's what I can do. Now you show me what you can do. So he went back. 2 days later, he called me that at the time, I think it was Minister Diane Cunningham. He personally spoke with her. This is what's happening. One thing led to another. She flew up June 11th.
Wow.
Or June 10th.
So all this took place
to deliver the charter to me so that I could have the students.
I find that incredible, and it worked. And that college, CTS, still goes on today.
Absolutely.
And it has other campuses, and it trains paralegals and addiction intervention and all kinds of trades and
paramedic. First paramedic program. I know it's hard talking about yourselves, but I'm talking about our people. Because I didn't do it by myself. Heck, I didn't even know what kind of ball of wax I was getting into. But I knew that there was a need, and if anybody was going to fulfill it, then why not me or us?
And you were risking your healthy computer business, spending on all this. And in the research I read, your wife couldn't sleep and her stomach was in a knot.
Oh, for quite a while. So there was a lot of things that I kept away from them, not purposely, but at least for their health, for health's sake.
But
we
the
were in
cash
trouble
flow,
twice.
In what way?
We were in trouble twice. We were in trouble once. It means nothing now. But once I was in a whole 60,000. The second time, 300,000. Tried to climb up that without telling, keeping
because you were funding the college.
I was funding the
college.
college.
Paying the salaries for the teachers and everything.
Everyone.
And what did you expect? You wanted tuition, or did you want the ministry to finally cough up some money?
No, I knew that the ministry was not going to cough up any money. So what I saw was, here's an opportunity. It was going to cost me about $104,000. There were students to be serviced. Well, let's service them, let's get them trained, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. Luckily, we all worked at it because I went for the experienced people. I went for the Delia Gray, Miss Delia Gray from Confederation College. Her husband was an incredible project manager from Ministry of Health. They were both retired. The best, hone in on their experience. So she put things in place like policies, procedures, making sure that we met the ministry's requirements. All of that stuff that young entrepreneurs don't want to know. Policies, what is that?
Yeah, right. And you had classrooms. Where were you what kind of space did you find?
We were in a space that, fortunately, I had teamed up with a countryman of ours, a very good builder up there, Tony Ferreira, and we built the plaza. He allowed me the privilege of being his partner in the plaza. So
you invested in that, in the building?
We had invested already that.
And you became your own tenant?
That's correct.
But
we were already there.
You were paying yourself the rent.
Oh, that's true. So we were already there, but we only had like I think it was about 4 classrooms. I needed 11. So we had to take over more units. Luckily, we were able to move tenants around, and I hadn't even spoken to the bank. So I said, Fernando, you got to do it. You just got to do it. Fernando's my brother-in-law, a very good, competent contractor. He came in. I went and I spoke with the City of North Bay Planning Department, Engineering Department. I got to get this done in a month and a half.
Incredible.
A month takes to get approvals. So we got in an architect. I can't remember who it was. Fernando was already started because the city gave us, okay, you guys get started, just don't touch electrical. So we get started. Within a month and a half, we had 6 more classrooms.
Wow.
And the permits were being approved as we were almost finished.
And that's incredible. Yeah. So within, really in the middle of one school year, you built a school, filled it with students, filled it with professors, and it was off and running. Now, when did tuition revenue finally come in?
About 9 months later, 10 months later, we started. We saw that the curriculum needed to be spruced up, and then of course Miss Delia Gray said, Carlos, I got to start all over, from scratch to do this properly. So committees got formed for each program, meetings started, curriculum got started. The ministry, Dr. Miosi, was incredible. Dr. Miosi, Phil Rajnath, the unit was really in help mode. and approvals were sought and received, and we started, I think it was Police Foundations, the very first approved our own curriculum program, which met the chiefs of police of Ontario.
Yes, because you had police technician was one of the courses offered, one of the...
Our own courses were the engineering courses, computer engineering, which we knew a lot about, which I'm very proud of, that I think at one point we had something like 52 graduates working at the Ministry of Correctional Services. As you know, the government, Peterson government decentralized the ministries, and we ended up in North Bay with correctional services. So a lot of people were graduating from our college and going there to making more money. Their starting wage was more money than I was making. And I was so proud of them.
Proud and sort of left wondering, I suppose. What's also striking is the professors did not desert you, and the students did not desert you. And in fact, they could have said, "Hey, who's this guy starting a school overnight?" You inspired confidence. How did you do that?
Well, actually, you know what? That's sometimes it's luck. You just go in and you get your team behind you. This is the vision. This is what we need to do. And it's almost like this is plan A. There is no plan B. Actually, I don't believe in plan Bs. The bankers are going to kill me because you got to make plan A work. So, and you're right there to make a decision when it's needed to, when a decision needs to be made. And then you go forward in the best interest of everybody.
And now you have campuses. How many students have you got?
We are almost 500.
Incredible.
We're almost at that number.
That's 13 years, 14 years.
Well, we started 28 years ago. The college was May of '99.
That's right. So
the college is a true college, with a charter and all.
And so now you have graduation ceremonies, and you wear the mortarboard, and you give a commencement address. And,
absolutely, yeah. You know what? Speaking of that, I no longer do that because an entrepreneur, and I say this so that I help other young people. An entrepreneur needs to stay at what he or she believes does best. It's not being paper pusher. So I gave up the presidency of the college just last year.
Oh, I see.
I hired the very competent Al Santos. I love him. He is trustworthy, somebody that I knew. My daughter, I'm such a lucky guy. My son, who's out there, an engineer as well, joined the college. My daughter, who actually is living right now in France, is the VP of academics. She's an academic at heart. I mean, to me, I'm living the dream because...
And like many entrepreneurs who are kind of restless, you've started another career as an international sports agent. That too is pretty incredible. I looked at the countries where you handle, basically it's in soccer, football, which is one of your loves. And so you are representing players and scouts. You've built a scouting, and you're in Bahrain, you're in South America, Paraguay. I mean, and you're in North Bay meanwhile doing all this. How did that start?
Oh man, that's a great gig. I mean, you're invited by royal families, by presidents of countries, because the presidents of clubs, it's usually high clout people,
Yeah.
They haven't got a clue how to run a bloody club, some of them, or they're not businessmen, that's for sure. But it got started really by, when you get bitten by the football bug or the hockey bug, it never leaves your blood.
No, for sure.
So I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I couldn't do it. I mean, we were already married. We had to get we had to get going and make some money, and then of course we got employees, and then you've got responsibilities to them. You can't go back to school. I will someday, but this gave me the opportunity to continue to fulfill clients' needs. Because you see, as an entrepreneur, we look for an opportunity to provide services, products, whatever it is. Then you've got to be strong enough to make the recommendation. Then have the gall to ask for the order.
Yeah.
So it's all a cycle.
But how did you get into football on an international scale, though?
Well,
so who opened the door?
I think that I got to give credit to a partner of mine in there, Professor Gustavo Zayas, who was a coach in Paraguay and very successful. Won championships, got up to coach the national team or be a team member of the national team. Went to Japan, 7 years there, successful, 2 championships in a row. He, like me, he married the Canadian girl. So his wife got in touch with me. You're an agent. My husband is a coach. He doesn't want to do what you do, and I don't think you want to do what he does. And I said, what a great idea. So we got together. I asked him a ton of questions like I do with my clients. He thought that was funny. And I asked Gustavo, just ask whatever you want of me so that you get to know me. He says, no, I already know enough. So we got together, and in football, we all have friends. It's all connections. The people that I played with were the guys that I played with. In Portugal, were running clubs, were coaches. So one thing led to another. My very first client was Frank Yallop, which I ended up actually not placing him, but I got invited by the Canadian Soccer Association to help them when they went to Portugal to play Portugal. And that was really the very beginning. That gave me contacts in Benfica, gave me contacts in other clubs in Portugal. From there, gave me contacts in the UK, and the whole thing is it snowballed from there.
So somebody's running the college for you. Somebody's obviously also running the computer company.
No, I was actually doing that. And to me...
Because being an agent, it seems to me you got to go all over the place, negotiating contacts.
True, but it was not as active as it is now. So I was sharing myself between the three ventures. And to me, it was good. You could work 24 hours a day, but because you go from engineering to education, which is also a passion, education, to football, which is another, a gig, a good gig, your brain seems to rest, even though the brain is working, but it's resting from one thing to another. It's been great to go from...
And so you negotiate on behalf of players.
Yeah.
But you have also built a scouting network.
That's correct. Well, actually, Gustavo did that.
And the purpose, I suppose, is to find the future talents and represent them early in their career. So have you struck gold with some stars?
Well, yes and no. Not to the extent that others have. But you see, my idea was different. Rather than blow our brains, and going everywhere and having 100 little kids and then maybe 10 will survive, I thought maybe I